They said I faked it, and for a long time, I let them believe that was the only truth that mattered. The room was cold, air-conditioned to a temperature that felt designed to keep people alert and uncomfortable, the kind of sterile chill you find in high-end law firms where millions of dollars change hands over the course of a morning. I sat at the end of the mahogany table, my hands folded neatly in front of me, watching the steam rise from the ceramic mug of tea they had offered me. It was a gesture of hospitality, but I knew it was a performance. Across from me sat Diane, my stepmother, and Kevin, my half-brother, flanked by their legal team, 3 men in suits that cost more than most people's cars. They looked at me not with grief, not with confusion, but with a kind of predatory anticipation, like wolves who had finally cornered a stray dog and were waiting for the moment to strike. They had accused me of forging the video testament my father left behind, the digital file that named me the sole executor of the Sterling Foundation and the controlling shareholder of Sterling Biotech. They claimed I had used deepfake technology to synthesize his voice and his image, to manipulate the final wishes of a dying man for my own gain. They said I faked it. They said I was a fraud, a grifter, a daughter who had waited by the bedside not to say goodbye, but to steal. I did not flinch when Kevin spoke, his voice cracking with manufactured outrage, pointing a finger at me as if I were a defendant in a criminal trial. I did not raise my voice when their lead attorney laid out the demand for a forensic analysis, a digital authentication test that would supposedly expose my deception. I simply nodded, took a sip of the tea, and told them that I agreed to their terms. I told them that I welcomed the test. I told them that the truth was the only thing I cared about. They smiled when I said that. I saw the exchange of glances between Diane and the lawyers, a subtle shifting of eyes that communicated victory before the battle had even begun. They believed they had trapped me. They believed that because they had hired the most expensive forensic firm in the state, because they controlled the narrative, because they had the weight of family opinion behind them, I would crumble under the pressure. They did not know that I had been waiting for this moment since the day my father took his last breath. They did not know that I had not spent the last 6 months grieving in silence. They did not know that I had spent every single hour of those 6 months building a cage, and now I had finally led them inside it. My name is April Sterling, and I am 33 years old. I have spent my entire life learning how to be invisible in rooms where men like my father and my brother held court. I learned early on that the best way to survive in a family built on ambition and ruthlessness was to appear harmless. I was the quiet daughter, the one who studied biology while Kevin studied business, the one who worked in the lab while he worked the boardroom. I was the one who held my father's hand when the chemotherapy made him shake, while Diane was busy planning the memorial service she hoped she would never have to attend. When the diagnosis came, terminal pancreatic cancer, the timeline was short and brutal. 3 months from diagnosis to death. In those 3 months, the dynamics of the family shifted like tectonic plates. My father, Richard Sterling, was a man who built an empire on precision. He did not tolerate errors. He did not tolerate weakness. And in his final weeks, he saw both of those things in abundance around him. He saw Kevin's impatience, the way my brother checked his phone during visits, the way he talked about the stock price while our father was struggling to breathe. He saw Diane's calculation, the way she began to reorganize the office furniture before he was even gone, the way she started referring to the house as hers. And he saw me. He saw that I was the only one who looked him in the eye. He saw that I was the only one who asked him what he wanted, not what he was leaving behind. So, he made his choice. He called me into his study 2 weeks before he died. He had the camera set up. He had the lawyer on standby via video link. He recorded his final testament. He spoke clearly. He named me the executor. He named me the guardian of the foundation. He left Kevin a trust fund, substantial but controlled, and he left Diane the house, provided she did not remarry. It was a logical distribution of assets based on loyalty and capability. It was not emotional, it was business. And when he died, I filed the documents. I followed the protocol. I sent the copies. And then the silence broke. The accusation did not come immediately. It took 3 weeks for them to organize, to consult with their lawyers, to build the narrative that would allow them to seize control. They could not attack the will on the grounds of capacity, because my father's doctors had certified his mental clarity until the end. They could not attack it on the grounds of coercion because I had not been in the room alone. So they attacked the medium. They claimed the video was a fabrication. In the age of artificial intelligence, it was a plausible lie. Deepfakes were in the news every day. Voices could be cloned. Faces could be mapped. It was the perfect weapon for someone who wanted to dispute the truth without having to prove a negative. They filed a petition to freeze the estate. They claimed I was withholding assets. They claimed I was unstable. They painted me as a grieving daughter who had lost her mind and decided to rewrite history to suit her needs. I read their filings in my office late at night, the blue light of the screen illuminating the stacks of paper I had already organized. I did not feel anger. Anger is a hot emotion, and it clouds judgment. I felt a cold clarity. I knew exactly what they were doing. They were trying to force a settlement. They wanted me to agree to a split, to give them control in exchange for dropping the lawsuit. They wanted to bleed the company dry with legal fees until I surrendered. But they had made one critical error. They had demanded a test. They had demanded a forensic authentication of the video file. And in doing so, they had triggered a clause in the company bylaws that my father and I had drafted together 5 years prior. A clause that neither of them knew existed. The clause stated that in the event of a dispute regarding the validity of a digital testament, all executive powers would revert to the interim executor until the dispute was resolved. And I was the interim executor. The freeze they requested applied to the distribution of assets, but it did not apply to the operation of the business. I could still sign checks. I could still authorize audits. I could still move pieces on the board while they were trying to prove the board was fake. I understood then that this was not just a legal battle. It was a war of attrition, and I had the advantage of time. They were impatient. They wanted the money now. I could wait. I had nothing but time. The forensic firm they hired was called Veritas Digital Solutions. They were the best in the industry, known for working with government agencies and high-stakes corporate litigation. I welcomed their involvement. I handed over the original hard drive myself. I watched the chain of custody form being filled out, initialing every line, ensuring that there was no room for tampering on my end. I wanted the process to be flawless. I wanted the result to be undeniable. While they began their analysis, a process that would take 45 days, I went to work. I did not spend those days worrying about the outcome. I knew the outcome. I had been present when the video was recorded. I had the raw files. I had the metadata. I had the witness testimony of the notary and the attorney. The video was real, but vindication was not enough. Vindication would simply return things to the status quo. It would put me back in charge, yes, but it would leave Diane and Kevin intact. They would walk away with their reputations damaged but their wealth preserved. They would learn nothing. They would feel no consequence. And I knew that if I left them with resources, they would try again. They would find another angle, another loophole, another lie. Revenge, in my view, is not about pain. It is about correction. It is about restoring balance. And the balance had been tipped by their greed. So, while the world waited for the test results, I began to look into the financials of the last 2 years. I looked into the transactions that had occurred while my father was too ill to review the accounts. I looked into the consulting fees that Diane had authorized for her brother's firm. I looked into the bonuses Kevin had paid himself despite the company missing its quarterly targets. I looked into the charitable donations that had been redirected to a foundation bearing Diane's maiden name. It was not difficult to find. They had been careless. They had assumed that because my father was dying, no one was watching. They had assumed that I was too busy holding a vigil to notice the numbers. They were wrong. I had been watching. I had been saving every email, every invoice, every bank statement. I had built an archive of their misconduct, not to use immediately, but to have ready for the moment when the truth was revealed. I needed the revelation of their fraud to coincide with the revelation of my innocence. The timing had to be perfect. If I released the information too early, they would claim it was retaliation. If I released it too late, the momentum would be lost. I needed the moment of their greatest triumph to be the moment of their total collapse. I needed them to be standing on the peak of the mountain when I cut the rope. During those 45 days, I maintained a public silence. I did not give interviews. I did not post on social media. I did not engage with the rumors that began to circulate in the industry. There were whispers that I was unstable, that I was hoarding the assets, that I was unfit to lead. I let them talk. I let the narrative build. I knew that the higher they built the scaffold, the harder the fall would be. I continued to run the company as usual. I attended board meetings. I signed off on research grants. I visited the labs. I kept the business functioning, which only served to frustrate Kevin more. He expected the company to falter without him. He expected the stock to dip. When it remained steady, when it actually rose slightly due to a new patent approval I had authorized, his agitation grew. He began to make mistakes. He started sending aggressive emails to the board members, copying people he should not have copied. He started making public statements about the company's direction that contradicted our official strategy. I saved all of it. I created a folder on my secure server labeled Escalation. I watched him unravel. I watched Diane try to hold him back, trying to manage his temper, but she was losing control too. She was spending money faster than usual, perhaps sensing that her access was about to be cut off. She bought a new car. She renovated the kitchen in the house my father had left her, even though the renovation required approval from the estate executor. She sent me the invoices, expecting me to pay them. I did not pay them. I sent them back with a note citing the freeze order. She called me. She screamed at me. She told me I was punishing her. I told her I was following the law. I told her that if she wanted the funds released, she should encourage her lawyers to expedite the test. I was polite. I was calm. I was maddeningly reasonable, and that made her angrier than anything else could have. She wanted a fight. She wanted me to give her a reason to paint me as the villain. I refused to give her the satisfaction. I remained the professional. I remained the executor. I remained the daughter who was simply doing her duty. The day the results were scheduled to be released, the atmosphere in the conference room was different. The air felt heavier, charged with the static of impending judgment. The lawyers from Veritas were there, along with a neutral mediator. Diane and Kevin sat on one side, me on the other. Kevin looked tired. He had dark circles under his eyes. He had not slept well, I knew. He had bet everything on this. He had told his investors that he would have control by the end of the month. He had promised his wife a new house. He had leveraged his reputation on the lie that I was a fraud. Diane looked composed, but her hands were trembling slightly as she held her pen. She was tapping it against the notepad, a rhythmic sound that filled the silence before the presentation began. The lead forensic analyst, a woman named Dr. Eris Thorne, opened her laptop and connected it to the screen. She did not smile. She did not offer pleasantries. She simply began to walk through the data. She showed the metadata of the original file. She showed the hash values. She showed the encryption keys. She explained the process of authentication, the way the digital signature matched the private key held only by my father's secure server. She explained that there was no evidence of synthesis, no evidence of manipulation, no evidence of splicing. The video was authentic. It was recorded on the date stated. It was spoken by the person named. The probability of forgery was less than 1 in a billion. When she finished, the room was silent. I looked at Kevin. I saw the color drain from his face. I saw the realization hit him like a physical blow. He had lost. He had lost the argument. He had lost the leverage. He had lost the narrative. But I did not smile. I did not say I told you so. I simply looked at the mediator and nodded. I accepted the findings. I acknowledged the validation. And then I reached into my bag and pulled out a second folder. This was the moment. This was the turn. The test had proved them wrong about me. Now I had to prove them wrong about themselves. I placed the folder on the table. I slid it toward the mediator. I told them that while the forensic team was analyzing the video, I had been analyzing the estate. I told them that in the course of my duties as executor, I had identified several irregularities in the financial records from the past 24 months. I told them that these irregularities suggested a pattern of embezzlement and fiduciary breach. I told them that I had already filed a report with the State Attorney General's office. I told them that I had already initiated a civil suit to recover the misappropriated funds. I told them that I had already frozen the personal accounts linked to the unauthorized transactions. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse them directly. I simply stated the facts. I let the documents speak for themselves. The folder contained bank transfers. It contained emails between Kevin and his vendors. It contained invoices for services never rendered. It contained the proof that Diane had been using the foundation's credit card for personal luxury travel. It was all there. Black and white, irrefutable, just like the video test. The reaction was not immediate. It took a moment for the information to process. Kevin stood up. He knocked his chair over. He shouted that I had planned this. He shouted that I had set them up. He said I was vindictive. He said I was cruel. And he was right. I was cruel, but I was not unjust. There is a difference. Cruelty is inflicting pain for the sake of pain. Justice is inflicting consequences for the sake of order. I had not set them up. They had set themselves up. I had simply removed the safety net. I had simply allowed them to walk to the edge of the cliff they had been digging for years. I looked at Kevin, and I spoke for the first time since the results were read. I told him that I had given them every opportunity to resolve this quietly. I told them that I had offered a mediation session 3 months ago. I told them that they had rejected it. I told them that they had chosen the public route. I told them that they had chosen the attack, and now they would have to accept the defense. I turned to the lawyers. I instructed them to proceed with the seizure of assets as per the court order I had secured that morning. I instructed them to change the locks on the corporate offices. I instructed them to revoke Kevin's access codes. I instructed them to suspend Diane's stipend pending the investigation. I gave the orders calmly, one by one, like a surgeon removing a tumor. There was no hesitation. There was no regret. I watched Diane begin to cry. It was not the cry of remorse. It was the cry of loss. She was crying because she was losing the house. She was losing the status. She was losing the security she had tried to steal. I did not comfort her. I did not offer a tissue. I let her feel the weight of what she had done. I let them sit in the silence of their own making. The lawyers began to pack up their bags. The mediator adjourned the session. The room emptied out, leaving only me and the two of them. Kevin looked at me with hatred. He told me that I would never be forgiven. He told me that I had destroyed the family. I looked at him and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a cold, hard certainty. I told him that he had destroyed the family the day he decided that money was more important than truth. I told him that I had just cleaned up the mess. I stood up. I adjusted my jacket. I walked to the door. I did not look back. I left them there in the room with the papers that detailed their ruin. I walked out into the hallway, and the air felt different. It felt lighter. The weight that had been on my shoulders for 6 months was gone. The uncertainty was gone. The threat was gone. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings and administrative cleanup. The story made the news, of course. A family feud over a biotech empire is always good copy. But the narrative was not what they had intended. It was not about the crazy daughter who faked the will. It was about the stepmother and the son who tried to steal from the estate. It was about the forensic test that cleared me and the audit that convicted them. I did not give interviews. I released one statement through the company PR team. It was brief. It stated that the matter was resolved and that the company was moving forward. I did not gloat. I did not explain my strategy. I let the public draw their own conclusions. The silence was more powerful than any speech I could have given. Kevin faced criminal charges. The amount he had embezzled was significant enough to warrant prison time. He pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. He was sentenced to 3 years. Diane settled the civil suit. She gave up the house. She gave up her claim to the trust. She moved to a smaller condo in a different state. I heard this through third parties. I did not contact her. I did not reach out. There was nothing left to say. The relationship was severed. The tie was cut. I was alone, but I was not lonely. There is a difference between solitude and isolation. Isolation is being cut off from others against your will. Solitude is choosing to be alone because you are complete within yourself. I was complete. I had the company. I had the foundation. I had the legacy. And I had the peace of mind that comes from knowing that you have protected what matters. I went back to work. I went back to the lab. I spent my days reviewing the research data, looking for the next breakthrough. I focused on the science. I focused on the work. That was what my father would have wanted. That was what I wanted. The revenge was not the destination. It was the bridge. It was the thing I had to cross to get to the other side. Now that I was across, I did not look back at the bridge. I burned it behind me and kept walking. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. They ask if I wish I had been more forgiving. They ask if I think I was too hard on them. They say that family is everything. They say that blood is thicker than water. I listen to them. I nod. I thank them for their concern, but I do not agree. Family is not everything. Integrity is everything. Loyalty is everything. Respect is everything. If blood is thicker than water, then it should be stronger than greed. It should be stronger than lies. When my family chose greed, they chose to dilute the blood. They chose to break the bond. I did not break it. I simply acknowledged that it was already broken. I did not destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I was just the witness. I was just the record keeper. I was just the one who ensured that the truth was written down correctly. There is a kind of power in that. It is not the power of a king or a queen. It is the power of a judge. It is the power of someone who holds the scale and ensures that the weights are accurate. I sleep well at night. I do not have nightmares. I do not wake up wondering if I did the right thing. I know I did. I know that if I had been soft, if I had been forgiving, if I had settled, they would have done it again. They would have found another way to take what was not theirs. They would have hurt other people. They would have damaged the company. They would have compromised the research. By stopping them, I protected more than just my inheritance. I protected the employees. I protected the patients who rely on our medication. I protected the future of the foundation. My revenge was not personal. It was structural. It was about fixing a broken system. It was about removing a corrupt element. It was about restoring order. And order is beautiful. Order is clean. Order is safe. I prefer order to chaos. I prefer truth to lies. I prefer justice to mercy. There are moments, of course, when I think about my father. I think about him sitting in his study, recording that video. I think about what he must have felt knowing that he was leaving me into a storm. He knew them. He knew what they were capable of. He knew that I would have to fight. And yet, he gave me the weapon. He gave me the video. He gave me the authority. He trusted me to use it. I hope I made him proud. I hope he sees that I did not waste the opportunity. I did not let them take it. I held the line. I kept the faith. I honored his memory not by mourning him, but by continuing his work. The company is stronger now than it was when he died. The stock is up. The research is advancing. We are closer to a cure for the disease that took him. That is the ultimate victory. Not the money, not the power, the progress, the life saved. The suffering ended. That is what matters. That is what makes the cold nights and the hard choices worth it. I look at the view from my office window. I see the city below. I see the lights. I see the movement. I see the world turning. And I know that I am part of it. I am not an observer anymore. I am a participant. I am a driver. I am a force. I am April Sterling. And I am exactly where I am supposed to be. The process of reclaiming control was not just about the legal victory. It was about the psychological shift. For years, I had been the daughter who waited. I had been the one who asked for permission. I had been the one who softened her edges to make others comfortable. That ended the day I walked into that conference room. I realized that comfort is the enemy of progress. If everyone is comfortable, nothing changes. If everyone is happy, no one is challenged. I had to be the one to make them uncomfortable. I had to be the one to disrupt the peace they had built on lies. It was not easy. There were days when I doubted myself. There were nights when I lay in bed and wondered if I was becoming like them. Was I becoming cold? Was I becoming ruthless? Was I losing my humanity? I asked myself these questions. I examined my motives. I looked at the evidence. And I realized that I was not becoming like them. They acted out of fear. They acted out of insecurity. They stole because they felt they were not enough. They lied because they were afraid of the truth. I acted out of certainty. I acted out of principle. I fought because I knew I was right. There is a difference between aggression and defense. There is a difference between attack and protection. I was protecting. I was defending. I was preserving. My heart was not hard. It was guarded. And it needed to be. You cannot leave your heart open in a war zone. You have to wear armor. You have to carry a shield. But you do not have to lower your values. You do not have to compromise your integrity. I kept my integrity intact. I did not lie. I did not cheat. I did not steal. I used the law, I used the truth, I used the system. And the system worked. That is the important part. It proves that justice is possible. It proves that if you are patient, if you are prepared, if you are precise, you can win. You do not have to scream. You do not have to fight dirty. You just have to be better. You have to be smarter. You have to be willing to do the work that others are too lazy to do. I think about the women who might hear this story. I think about the women who are in similar situations. The women who are being told they are too emotional. The women who are being told they are too aggressive. The women who are being told to let it go, to forgive, to move on. I want them to know that they do not have to. I want them to know that forgiveness is not mandatory. Justice is optional, but it is available. You do not have to accept the narrative that is written for you. You can write your own. You can demand the test. You can demand the proof. You can demand the truth. And if the truth is on your side, you can use it. You can use it to build a wall. You can use it to build a bridge. You can use it to build a future. Do not let them tell you that you are faking it. Do not let them tell you that you are imagining it. Do not let them tell you that you are crazy. You know what you know, you feel what you feel, you see what you see. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Trust your evidence. And when the time comes, when the moment is right, do not hesitate. Do not apologize. Do not look back. Just move forward. Just take what is yours. Just restore the order. It is not revenge. It is balance. And the world needs more balance. The world needs more women who are willing to stand up and say no, who are willing to say enough, who are willing to say, I am not who you think I am not what you say I am me. And I am done playing your game. The days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months. The legal dust settled. The headlines faded. The company moved on. I moved on. But I did not forget. I kept the files. I kept the records. I kept the memory, not to dwell on it, but to remember what I am capable of, to remember what I survived, to remember that I am strong. I have a plaque on my desk. It is not an award. It is not a recognition. It is a copy of the forensic report, the one that said the video was real. The one that said I was telling the truth. I look at it sometimes. I touch the paper. I feel the texture. It reminds me that truth is tangible. It is not abstract. It is not a feeling. It is a fact, and facts cannot be argued with. Facts cannot be negotiated. Facts just are, and when you have the facts on your side, you are invincible. You might get hurt. You might get tired. You might get scared. But you cannot be defeated. Not really. Not if you hold on to the truth. Not if you hold on to the evidence. Not if you hold on to yourself. I hold on to myself. I hold on to my work. I hold on to my father's legacy. And I keep going. I keep building. I keep fighting. Not for them, not for the past, but for the future. For the next girl who comes into this office. For the next woman who is told she doesn't belong. I want her to see me. I want her to know that it is possible. I want her to know that she can win. I want her to know that she does not have to fake it. She just has to be it. She just has to be real. She just has to be true. And if the world tries to tell her otherwise, she can demand the test. She can demand the proof. And she can watch them fall. She can watch them crumble. She can watch them lose. And she can stand there, calm and controlled, and know that she did it right. She did it clean. She did it smart. That is the goal. That is the mission. That is the life. I walk through the office now with a different stride. People look at me differently. They respect me. They fear me, maybe, but they respect me. They know that I am not to be trifled with. They know that I check the details. They know that I read the contracts. They know that I do not miss anything. That is a good reputation to have. It keeps people honest. It keeps the company honest. It keeps me honest. I do not want to be the kind of leader who rules by fear. I want to be the kind of leader who rules by competence. I want to be the kind of leader who inspires confidence. I want to be the kind of leader who protects the team. I think my father would like that. I think he would be proud of the way I run things. I think he would be proud of the way I handled the situation. I think he would be proud of the woman I have become. I hope so. I hope I am making him proud. I hope I am honoring his name. I hope I am living up to the Sterling legacy. Not the money, not the fame, the integrity, the work, the truth. That is the legacy that matters. That is the legacy that lasts. That is the legacy I will leave behind. When I am gone, I want people to say that I was fair. I want people to say that I was strong. I want people to say that I was real. I do not want them to say that I was rich. I do not want them to say that I was powerful. I want them to say that I was right. That is enough for me. That is all I need. To be right, to be true, to be me. The sun is setting now. The light is coming through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. The office is quiet. The phones have stopped ringing. The emails have stopped coming. It is just me and the silence. And I am okay with that. I am more than okay. I am at peace. I have fought the battle. I have won the war. I have secured the future. Now I can rest, not sleep, not stop, but rest. I can breathe. I can relax. I can enjoy the view. I can appreciate the moment. I can be present. I am present. I am here. I am now. And I am ready for whatever comes next. I am not afraid. I am not worried. I am not anxious. I am prepared. I am ready. I am April Sterling. And this is my story. This is my truth. This is my life, and I am just getting started. The test proved them wrong, but the life I build now will prove me right. Every day, every decision, every action, I will prove it. I will show them, I will show everyone, that I am not a fraud, I am not a fake, I am not a lie, I am the truth, and the truth always wins. Eventually, always, it might take time, it might take effort, it might take pain, but it wins. It has to because nothing else lasts. Nothing else matters, only the truth, and I have the truth. I hold it in my hands, I carry it in my heart, I speak it with my voice, and I will never let it go. Never. The legal fees were substantial, but the company could absorb them. The reputation damage was temporary, but the recovery was swift. The employees rallied around me. They saw what happened. They saw that I protected the company. They saw that I protected them. Morale improved. Productivity increased. Innovation surged. It was as if the removal of the toxicity allowed the organism to heal. The company breathed again. It grew. It expanded. We launched new projects. We hired new talent. We opened new facilities. The future was bright. And I was the one holding the light. I was the one leading the way. I did not do it alone. I had a team. I had partners. I had allies. But I was the captain. I was the one who set the course. I was the one who steered the ship. And I steered it true. I steered it straight. I steered it home. Home is not a place. It is a state of mind. It is a feeling of safety. It is a feeling of belonging. I belong here. I belong in this chair. I belong in this role. I belong in this life. I earned it. I fought for it. I won it. And I will keep it. I will keep it safe. I will keep it secure. I will keep it strong. For my father, for myself, for the future. That is the promise I made. That is the vow I took. That is the path I walk, and I will not stray, I will not falter, I will not fail. I am April Sterling, and I am done apologizing, I am done explaining. I am done waiting, I am here. I am real, I am true, and I am ready. The test is over, the results are in, the verdict is clear. I won, they lost, and the world goes on, but it goes on differently now. It goes on better, it goes on right, and that is all that matters. That is everything. That is the end, and the beginning.